from self-discovery to unapologetic passion, from inner strength to outward influence. It's Your Turn charts the journey of empowerment. Welcome to our series, where the book comes to life. In each episode, we explore a chapter's wisdom through real stories. We uncover the strategies that turn potential into power. And we witness how one woman's journey can inspire countless others. Prepare to see yourself in these pages and voices. Because with every story, we're reminded, it's your turn to write the next chapter.
Vanessa Wright has spent more than 35 years working in FMCG luxury in the drinks industry, with over 28 years at Pernod Ricard as the Global Communications Director for Shivas Brothers, which is Scotch, whiskey and gin, and Martell, Mumm, and Perrier-Jouët, which is cognac and champagne. And as a Global Group Chief Sustainability Officer, where she built and led the group's Global 2030 Sustainability Strategy. She is recognized for her expertise in developing strategies, leading global transformation and change initiatives, building a driving global corporate brand communications campaign, and fostering strong stakeholder relationships. Vanessa, welcome to this conversation, and thank you so much for supporting also the book. It's Your Turn. It was so important for me to document my writing with interviews, experiences that exceptional women share in their lives that show readers how to translate what they're reading into real cases. So thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled to learn from you.
Thank you very much for asking me to be part of this. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and I think it's fantastic to help women globally to navigate the world of the modern day workplace and learn hopefully from others as we learn from the younger generations, I would say, on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely. I think it is so important. And that brings us basically to one of the topics that we wanted to talk about, and it is empowering your relationships and surrounding yourself with allies, which is a very important chapter in my book. It is about how women basically need each other in order to be more powerful, in order to thrive, in order to build whatever they want to build, being inspired, being sponsored, being supported. And it is generally known, research-based, that women, if they are fully aligned with themselves, if they really have their vision and their mission, that the next step they take is to support others, is to give it back or pay it forward. So what is your experience?
Yeah, so I think it's a fine balance actually, because I've always felt that I haven't necessarily wanted to just be part of these women's groups. I felt that it needed to involve men as well and be much more balanced. So in certain times during my career, I suppose I thought, no, I don't want to be part of these specific women organizations. However, I do think that there are challenges that as women we face within the workplace on an ongoing basis, actually. So I think it is helpful to be able to share and exchange. And certainly as I've matured more and more in my career, I've really sought these groups and other women within the organization, both women actually more senior than myself, who I can go and bounce ideas and have conversations with, but also more junior to myself, because actually I think those are the people that help you to stay more relevant. So it's really finding that balance of the elders, if you like, the ones who are perhaps the library books, and then also the Kindles, the ones that the newer people on the scene who actually you learn, as I said, to stay relevant from. So I think it is really important to have that network. I think it's important in many areas, actually. I think one is within your own business, wherever you're working, to really find those people who you can relate to and who you can really share in a very open and honest way and really trust each other. And that's something actually I always found a little bit of a challenge in my early days, because I was one of the most senior female. And I was, for example, on the senior management team for 10 years alone as the only female. So it was quite difficult to do that with my male peers, because I didn't necessarily want that to be misconstrued by saying, can we go and have a drink to discuss this? Or so there are some challenges around navigating that. So that was a bit more challenging in my early career. But I think within your own organization, it's important to foster and build those relationships. I think also something that probably if I look back on my career so far and look forward, that I will be making sure I do much more of, which is externally. Because I think we really learn and grow by talking to other people, other women in our case, from outside organizations in similar roles or indeed in different roles, where we can really, again, perhaps even more easily talk very openly about our own experiences and share and learn together. And I think that building of that external network is something that I think is absolutely crucial to our careers. And I think many of us probably haven't put enough emphasis on that. We're so busy doing the day job that actually don't think about stepping out. And I think when you do, you start to learn. And then the third part of that, I think, is inside, outside the organization, and then within your friend group, if I may say. We all make friends because we love the people that end up becoming our friends. But also it's very helpful to have some people within that group of close friends, I think, who are really people that you admire and that you can really share with on a day-to-day basis and bounce things off. In some ways, and I hope this comes out correctly, it's really keeping the company of some people who make you better in the sense that they help you to grow and you can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is very important to be aware and to stay aware of, I would say, the quality of the relationships and the type of people that we surround ourselves with. And it is so important to surround yourself with women that have your back, that are positive, that are ambitious, that have a vision and a mission that is at least aligned with what you want to actualize in life, because this is so empowering. And if you miss that, or if you surround yourself with people who drain your energy or take you down, you cannot achieve the same things. I
Yeah,
think that
no, I
is very
totally agree. I refer to those people as drains or radiators, actually. And I try
like
extremely
that.
hard in my life to surround myself by radiators. Now, of course, if you're a good friend to people and they're having a difficult time, of course, you support and care for them and you're there for them. But not to the extent where it really just drains your energy. And I
Yeah.
totally agree. It's surrounding yourself with people that kind of help pump you up. I recently met a girl actually just in town, ridiculously, in a nail bar. And I could be her mother, in fact. But the connection that we had, but the nature of the positive energy that I think we both have flowing from them has really made us very strong friends in the last couple of years. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a lot of women I work with, they say we're just in this rat race where we have so many responsibilities, so many goals, so many commitments. It is so difficult to keep up with developing strategies and also developing the routines or maybe even the rituals in order to keep those contacts alive. So, what strategies do you use in order to stay connected
Mm.
with like-minded women?
Yeah, I think during the roles that I've had, I've always tried to, and it was part of my role in any case, to be an ambassador for the organization. So really finding those opportunities where I could go outside the organization, whether it was me speaking at a conference or just attending a conference or an event or a working group, where I could really have that opportunity to do that. And I think, unfortunately, you're right, everyone's just so nose against it that you really have to carve out the time to do it. So I think maybe it's about saying to yourself, okay, once a month or once every 2 months, I'm going to try and attend something externally, or I'm going to start building a group of women. I started to do that too, where I built a group actually with the expat community of women who had moved to Paris so that we could share our experiences and learn together. But I think you do have to carve out the time because otherwise the reality is it never actually happens.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at that, how has surrounding yourself with allies, how has that impacted your well-being, basically, the way you were thriving in life?
I think it gives you more energy. And I think it gives you a sense of security in being able to share things before. There have been women in the organizations that I've worked with that I've been able to go and see before a board meeting or see before a big presentation and just bounce it off them and just say, look, does this make sense? Please, can I give me your input and your thoughts? By the way, I've done that also a lot with male colleagues too, And that's been particularly helpful before some big meetings, because actually it's also a way to foster buy-in before some of these big meetings that are attended by quite a large number of people, by getting people's input at the outset. So I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like also that you bring forward the fact that you also connect with male colleagues or with male allies in order to brainstorm or get ideas or get feedback. Because although that the book is meant for women and it is written by a woman and it's basically created by women for women, it doesn't mean that we are like in this isolating setting where there is only women in our worlds. That is absolutely not true, because most of the women reading this book and listening to these conversations are actually working in a male-dominated environment. And if you look at leadership, your leadership, there's a lot to say, and I also bring it up in the book about the feminine leadership traits, and they're gender neutral. They're just labeled in general as general leadership traits, like the compassion, the community, the empathy, things like that, as an opposite, not verbally, to the male leadership qualities like setting and achieving goals and the competition and the drive to manifest. You as a leader, how have you been able to harmonize these masculine and feminine leadership traits? And how do you feel that being able to harmonizing, to integrate them, is contributing to your success as a leader?
I think if I look back at my early career, I think honestly I had to learn a lot of those, as you put it, more masculine traits, perhaps in terms of strategy, really setting very strong goals and being very single-minded about achieving those targets. Because I think, especially because I was in the communications environment, where actually the natural set of skills that I was using was around communication, was around empathy, was around understanding and learning how to talk to different people at different levels within the organization. But I think I was in a fortunate environment where I had the opportunity to do quite a lot of training courses and quite a lot of learning. I also did spend a lot of time, as I said, because I was quite alone with my senior male colleagues, the ones that I felt more comfortable with, to really spend time with them and really learn from them too, how perhaps those, as I said, you put it, more male traits were, and how they, how they thought and how they did things differently. So I think perhaps that was, some of that was more learned. I think those other traits for me were more obvious. It was a very natural way to behave. It was very natural for me to build a team together. It was very natural for me to promote the people within my team. I really wanted, my success was to see them shine, in fact. For me, those traits and those pieces. But I think it is absolutely fundamental to have both, of course. And I think over the years, you just learn to hone and identify the leadership traits where you're strong and the leadership traits where you need to improve. And this is one of the things I want to talk about later, but we need to forever learn. We need to keep learning. Knowledge is so powerful. Understand where your weaknesses are or where you need to strengthen, and really start to focus on those areas that you believe you need to improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. You have been working with teams for many years and in many different settings. You have built these teams also. So, how does guiding and mentoring others nurture your own unique talents?
Actually, it's one of the things I've loved about my career is bringing together, bringing together high performing teams, and actually identifying the different skills and traits and personalities and characters of different individuals, how they all contribute to that team. People who are much more prefer to sit and look at data, people that are much better at the forefront. So that's something I've truly enjoyed. And I think it makes for a more successful organization and for the team itself in terms of the dynamism to have those different pulls and pushes of the different characters. Sorry, I forgot the second part of your question there, Eleanor.
How does it nurture your unique talents to do that?
For me, it gives me the greatest pleasure. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than having seen the people in my teams progress to more senior positions, either within the organization or leave and take on more senior roles. And actually, one of the things that was very heartwarming when I recently left my recent role was some of the emails and the messages that I received from women who I've obviously worked with many years ago, and them telling me that some of the kind of mentoring I'd done with them were tips and hints and things that they still use today in their business life. The other thing, just to add, Elena, was I think it's never one way. Like I said, I've from the formal mentoring I've done, as well as the mentoring within my own teams, I've always learned such a tremendous amount about business and how things are changing, but also about myself, actually. And also in the way that perhaps you look at things from the outside. I had one mentee who was, when I was given him to be my mentee, I just looked and I thought, my goodness, how am I ever going to be able to help this man? He's extraordinarily bright. He speaks 5 languages. I've seen him operate. He's brilliant at what he does. Why am I going? But actually, as we started to talk more and more, I realized that there were some challenges that he faced, maybe more around some of those other, perhaps softer skills and confidence areas. So that was great because I really felt that I could bring something new to him and help him.
You describe your unique mentoring style, and what do you believe that women, or how do you believe that women can develop their mentorship abilities? Because I would say, I would like to say that there's not enough mentors. There's not enough female mentors. There's not enough female role models. And this again also is like a quest. It's not only the book, but also the interviews to create that awareness that we can all be role models and we can all be mentors. So what do you feel are like your unique traits as a mentor?
I feel like I started in this a particularly male industry at a very young age. And I know that I miss not having that myself. So I think one of the things is a huge amount of openness in sharing my own experiences, my own failures, my own learnings. And so I would say openness is one of them. I'm not afraid to share where I failed and how I learned. I think also very collaborative, because mentoring isn't about telling someone what to do, even if it's desperately on the edge of your tongue and you want to. It's about really coaching people to help them find the right way of doing it. So just in the conversation and the way that you're talking about things. And I think by nature, I'm quite curious. So I think one of the things I like to do is try and see and help people to think like that, to be a little bit more curious about what they're doing. So it's difficult to summarize in 1 or 2 words, but I would certainly say openness and collaborative and sharing.
And curiosity. Yeah, I like that. Would you also, you mentioned openness, would you also mention vulnerability, or do you believe that
Absolutely,
it's...
yes. Yeah, no, I think vulnerability is what I said, perhaps not using the word, which is to share my own failures and my own learnings. I'm absolutely not afraid to do that at all. And I think probably compared to men, sometimes men see that as failure discussing those things, whereas certainly for me, I think it's a strength actually to be able to be comfortable in sharing. I did this and it didn't work and I wasn't very good at that. So I decided not to go down that particular career path or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to think at the end of the time that of anyone I've mentored, that I've helped them to be a little bit braver and also not to change who they are. Because if you're someone who's inherently a little bit shy, you don't want someone that's mentoring you is almost trying to make you go into a room and suddenly be a bit louder, because that's not who you are. But it's to find perhaps people, role models that they admire and respect, who are more introvert, and align with them and see if perhaps they can, if they're in the organization, if they can perhaps meet up with them and understand how they have their own kind of brand. You've got to create your own brand. I don't think we need to try and make people all be the same.
Yeah, that's what a lot of us do, right? Adapt to what we feel is expected from us and behave and show up in a way that is not really authentic, but we believe that's the only way we can win the game in order to talk in those terminologies. And so a lot of us lose ourselves in behavior and activities that is not us. And that is so depleting. That is so much energy draining. So I really appreciate you bringing up all these traits that are basically strengths that we can use, that we can also demonstrate, and that we can inspire others with. Because when you are, as already said, as a leader, as a role model, people are looking at you, and people look at the way you behave, and they look at the words you speak and the things you do and you don't do. And so if you demonstrate this authentic behavior, it is very encouraging. It's very inspiring for younger generations that need role models. We all need to learn from what we see and how we interact with other people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm curious, Vanessa, what inspired your commitment to do this, to cultivating young leaders, to mentor them, to support them? What's your source of inspiration for that?
I suppose I'm lucky actually because I had that a bit that structure within the organization, but which was very helpful because there was some learning that came with that. There's some structure to that, if you like. But actually, even before that, I was doing that informally in any case in all the organizations I've worked with because I was a senior female quite early on in my career. I always had people coming to ask me advice, coming to say, actually, could I talk to you a bit more about this? It always happened quite naturally because of my position. I actually, one of the things that I'd really like to do for the future is see how I can help champion women who don't necessarily go to university. I myself didn't go to university, and I managed to drive forward my own career without this whole planning around my career. But I did have a vision, and I did have a drive, and I did have a determination. And I think it's a great shame in today's society that almost if you don't have that second level of education, that you don't get out of the starting block. So that's something that I think is quite important for the future because people have different sets of skills that are equally valuable, but perhaps in different roles. I think for me, I that's something that's hugely important for the future. And I'm continuing to do that actually in my personal life with women who are in my life who are younger. I do that with all my nieces. I do that with friends' daughters who ring me up and ask me for advice. So I think if I can share my experiences and it really helps them for the future, that's great. I don't have all the answers, of course, but hopefully I can help.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure you can help. And just a listening ear, just being there, just having somebody's back is so empowering. So how has that unlocked potential? Did you see amazing things happen? Did you see surprising things happen after one or more of these sessions that you have with people within the organization or in your
Yeah, I mean,
personal
I've seen that
setting?
I've seen people change jobs quite quickly after some of the sessions because they had more confidence to go for what they wanted a little bit more. I've seen people behave very differently in meetings because suddenly they've got a bit more confidence as a female not to go and sit at the back of the room, but actually sit in the middle of the table or ask the questions that before they would never ask because they were thinking, oh God, it might be a silly question. I won't ask it. And then we've all been in that situation. And I think it, for some reason, it seems to happen more to women that you think, I wanted to ask that question. Then 2 minutes later, someone else asks it. Man, usually, often. And you think, oh God, why didn't I ask the question? So, it's some of those very practical, smaller things, but it's some of those things about how do you create your own brand, as I said earlier? What do you stand for? What's important for you? What are the areas that you think you need to improve on to change things both in your business and your personal life? Because I think increasingly the way we live our lives today, those two things aren't separate. So you're not one person and there and a different one there. But how are you able to combine those two selves to be the true person you are in your work and your personal life?
I love that. I love this holistic approach. That's also what I preach for myself and also in my work with women. We are not one person at work or in our business, and one person when we're not at work or in our business. There's a holistic approach. And I also believe that the real separation, even in time and timing between professional and personal, is completely flowing and fluid, and it will only become more of that. So, yeah, I really love what you're saying there. I have a question, Vanessa. When you look at when you were like in the start blocks of your career, probably ambitious, eager to thrive, eager to make promotion, to assume accountability, and where you are now as a mature and very wise leader, how has your purpose changed over time?
That's a very good question. I think when I started working, I didn't have a clear path in mind for myself. To be honest, I didn't even know what was possible. I didn't even know things were possible for me.
Mhm.
I didn't have, my parents didn't push me or probably guide me quite enough. So I didn't believe that I could achieve these things. And so I think it was only step by step that I began to realize more and more the potential that I had in actually not even just sticking to one discipline. And I think that's something that's really important. And I probably learned that later on in my career, which is you start working in a particular subject which you think becomes a strong discipline for yourself, and you feel like you're in that lane. And actually, I think we need to say to ourselves that as we learn and we mature, we can change lanes. We can change into something different, like I did from communications to sustainability. At the time, it's pretty scary, actually. You sit there and think, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? But actually, we all learn. We have the competencies and the capabilities that we've gained and we've learned during those different years that enable us to go, actually, I should believe in myself because I can actually change. I can change and do something different and transfer these skills to somewhere new. So I think that for me is one of the greatest learnings. And that's something that I definitely share with the younger women I talk to. Don't just feel that you have to stay in one place. Learn as much as possible, but actually it's about drive and determination and passion in the end, in fact.
Mm.
And believing that you can do those things and taking the opportunities that arise to try new things and to learn.
Yeah, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. And I'm sure that a lot of people watching this episode or listening into it have learned so much from what you're saying here because it's basically such a rich trajectory, such a rich journey that you are documenting here. And to close our conversation, I have one last question, and it is what guidance would you offer people listening or watching these episodes to themselves empower the communities, to themselves take that role of paying it forward, of giving it back, instead of just privileging the individuals alone?
It's like I said at the beginning, I think I have learned so much from the mentoring and the managing of people. And I'm still learning. I learn every day from that. So it's not about one person mentoring another. It really is a two-way process. And I think for me, that helps you to stay relevant. It helps you to learn. I think it's really nourishing. It's very enriching. It's just so wonderful when you talk to someone and they say, oh, remember that conversation we had? I really listened to the things that you were saying, and it helped me to then reach the right decisions myself because I thought through everything that you were talking about. And one of the things I suppose I slightly do always say, because it's been my values and my principles throughout my career, is three words really that I've always used, which is I've always wanted to be courageous, curious, and kind. It used to be the three C's because I used to talk about compassion, but I think I really feel that those three in my career have been hugely important in courage, in being willing to have a go and not being afraid to fail, curious because then you ask a lot of questions. And I think, sorry, one of the other things I haven't mentioned is about active listening. And I probably didn't do that in my younger years because you're trotting along on your path. But I think listening, and I think that's why mentoring's such an enriching experience. And kindness, obviously, because I think people sometimes, and particularly some women actually, think that if they're in the workplace, suddenly they need to change who they are and be tough and hard and a bit nastier. No, that just doesn't make sense to do that at all.
I love it. I love these three words to conclude this conversation, Vanessa. Courage, curiosity, and kindness. I believe that these are three words that everybody can keep somewhere in their sights. I would say put it on a mirror, put it on on a sticky note, on a place where you often can see it, because these are very powerful words, and they're basically like the condensation and the consolidation of your story and of what you have been sharing with us here today. And I cannot thank you enough for supporting this cause of empowering women, for being an empowered woman, for empower other women. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you very much. It's been fantastic to have this conversation with you.